nice to be here with you, Muscle Man.
There's no sun up in the sky. Life is bare. Gloom and misery everywhere.
I feel like someone's watching us.
Everything I have is gone.
Run!
Gone.
Run!
Hey everyone, it's Soul here, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. This week's video is going to be a lengthy one, and it's something that I've been working on for a while now. Today, I will be discussing my all-time favorite video game, Until Dawn. If you've been watching my Dark Pictures anthology series, you'll know by now that I reference this game a lot, and in many ways, I use it as the sort of baseline for my opinions and rankings on the Dark Pictures series. I have so much that I want to discuss about this game, and I am just so excited to get started. This video will have a lot of timestamps, so feel free to jump around, but without further ado, let's just get going. Real quick before we do though, please remember to hit that like button, click subscribe to see more videos from me, and leave a comment down below. Here is your one and only warning, that this video contains spoilers. Alright, grab your snow boots and let's run in. Until Dawn is a PlayStation original game that was released in 2015. It was developed by Supermassive Games and was published by Sony Entertainment. It was advertised as a playable horror film, with them openly admitting that the game is based on a lot of horror movie cliches. Throughout the advertisements, they also made it known that the main emphasis of this game was the butterfly effect. Now, for those of you that may not know, the butterfly effect comes from the idea that something small has a non-linear effect on something major. Now, in terms of writing, it is definitely a challenging thing to create, since the multitude of pathways that the writers have to come up with to not only keep the story going, but also keep the continuity of the stories is definitely a huge task. Until Dawn is certainly not the first game to use this concept. Beyond Two Souls, Heavy Rain, and The Walking Dead, they all came out less than 5 years prior to Until Dawn, and all three were successful games that had the butterfly effect at play. So while it was definitely not the first game to use this, the developers definitely played into it the most out of all these prior games, with the addition of the totems and the color-coded butterflies drawing extra emphasis to the importance of each and every decision. Until Dawn, aside from it being my personal favorite game, was and arguably still is a huge success in the gaming industry. The game was written by Justin Villiers, Peter Samuels, Larry Fessenden, and Graham Resnick, and it was directed by Will Biles. The game stars Hayden Panettiere as Sam, Rami Malek as Josh, Peter Stormare as Dr. Hill, Brett Dalton as Michael, Megan Martin stars as Jessica, Jordan Fisher plays Matt, Nicole Sakura is Emily, Noah Fleece is Chris, Galadriel Steinman is Ashley, Ella Lentini is both Hannah and Beth, and Larry Fessenden is the flamethrower guy whose full name turns out to be Jack Fiddler. I have to give a massive round of applause to these actors because going into a butterfly effect story takes a lot of dedication. Having to memorize and learn the multitude of different lines for the many possible pathways, it sounds like a huge challenge, and not to mention, the acting in the motion capture, especially when this game was made, was more of a challenge due to their facial expressions needing to be a bit more over the top in order for the mocap to actually pick it up and register it on screen. And on top of all the technicalities that come with acting in this type of game, I think all of their acting performances were outstanding, and their talent definitely helped make this game a much more of an immersive experience. Speaking of immersive, the graphics, music, and audio are absolutely incredible. When replaying the game for this video, the graphics still hold up incredibly well. Yes, the mocap is a bit strange and over the top and not really the most realistic in terms of the characters' facial expressions, but the designs of the settings, the character models, and the balance of the lighting is absolutely outstanding. The game is very atmospheric, and this might be a minor thing, but I personally like how it takes place in the winter in the snow, because the white snow contrasted the dark night and the dark forest, and it made for some really cool shots throughout the game. So, what is the actual story of Until Dawn? Let me try and break it down for those of you that may not know. A group of friends are alone at a cabin in the woods. That's how every single horror movie starts, including this game, but I did warn you in advance that it would be a bit cliche in the beginning of the game. After her friends play a cruel prank on her, Hannah is left embarrassed and runs off into the snow. She is then followed by her twin sister Beth. However, they are soon chased to the edge of a cliff by presumably the stalker with the knife that was spotted earlier, or perhaps something else. The girls tragically fall off the cliff and die. A year later, the girls' death is still a mystery to the public, but their older brother Josh decides to invite all of their friends back to the remote cabin in the mountains. After some relationship drama and a bit of a catfight, Mike and Jess head out onto the trail to the guest cabin. They are followed by our mystery man and are forced on a detour through a small section of the old mine shafts. And just as they are about to approach the guest cabin, they are suddenly chased by something that killed and snatched away a deer. Jess realizes she's lost her phone, and right as they are about to woohoo, her phone comes flying through the window, leading Jess to storm off outside, thinking that they are being pranked by her friends, before she is suddenly grabbed and forced out of the window of the cabin. Mike chases after her heroically and follows her to the entrance of the mines, in which she is seen laying down on the elevator right before it collapses. Mike sees someone leaving the scene and follows this mystery man to the abandoned sanatorium. Meanwhile, back in the main cabin, Josh, Chris, and Ashley are holding a seance that suggests the twins are haunting the group and trying to reveal who their murderer is. Chris and Ashley find a horrifying note in the library, and they hear Josh screaming in the kitchen, only for the two of them to then get knocked out by a psychopath. Chris awakens to a horrible trap in which he has to choose who to save, Josh or Ashley. Since he has a crush on Ashley, he ends up saving her life. Panicked and covered in blood, they run into Emily and Matt, who decide to go get help. They walk the trail up to the old fire tower and radio for help, and they are soon informed that the helicopter won't be able to come until dawn. Just then, someone, or something, snaps the rope on the tower, causing it to collapse into the mines, where Emily and Matt get separated. Back at the cabin, Sam gets chased by our psychopath, and she stumbles across this person's lair before eventually running into Mike. Meanwhile, Chris and Ashley are having some ghostly encounters while searching for Sam before they end up in yet another trap. With everyone eventually ending up in the same room in the creepy basement, it is finally revealed that the psychopath was Josh all along. He planned and recorded this elaborate prank as a way to get revenge for his dead sisters. However, Mike is still angered by the loss of Jess and ties Josh up, who is adamant that he didn't kill Jess. We cut back to Emily in the mines, where she comes across Beth's head and clues suggesting that Hannah didn't actually die when they fell off the cliff 1 year ago. Emily runs straight into our mystery man, who is seen with a flamethrower before he saves Emily as some sort of creature climbs down from the ceiling of the mines. After a tense and horrifying section of gameplay in which Emily is chased by this golem-like creepy creature, she escapes and makes it to the cabin. The mystery man then tells our group of the dangers of the Wendigo, a supernatural spirit from Native American legend and lore that enters a human soul only if that person partakes in cannibalism. They can only hunt at night, and they can't see you if you don't move. Realizing that they left Josh outside, Chris and the flamethrower guy go to try and rescue him, only to discover that they are too late. The mystery man dies, and Chris barely escapes with his life back to the cabin. Jess and Matt, who are revealed to be alive as they run into each other in the mines, are able to escape the Wendigo together. Out of fear and concern over their hiding place in the main cabin, Mike decides to try and go get the cable car key from Josh and encounters many Wendigos along his way. Sam follows after him, and the two of them end up in the lair of the Wendigo. They find Hannah's diary, in which she admits to eating her sister after starving for days. And when they finally find a very insane Josh, Sam lets it slip that Hannah was trapped down there. The Wendigo then attacks Mike and Josh as they are trying to escape, and through the butterfly tattoo on its arm, it is revealed to be Hannah. Josh gets dragged off while Sam and Mike make it back to the lodge, where two more Wendigo have entered the scene. The final stage of the game is a long section full of the game's Don't Move feature, as Mike breaks a light bulb after the Wendigos release gas into the air. As everyone makes their way out of the house, Sam finally makes a run for the switch, and that one spark causes the house to explode in flames, killing all of the Wendigos inside. While our main group of characters have survived, in a post-credits clip, we see Josh still in the mines, transforming into a Wendigo as he eats the body of Jack Fiddler, the flamethrower guy. So why exactly is this game so popular? Well, the main reason and the general consensus amongst people online is that this game has amazing energy and creates a very unique feeling and experience when you play it. The game is highly immersive, and it also has the unexpected twist of the Wendigos, which definitely causes the energy to shift once the Wendigos are revealed. It is a once-in-a-lifetime experience that many people can agree has not been replicated since then. Another reason that I personally think this game is so popular is because of the timing of its release. This game came out at what was arguably the height of YouTube gaming. PewDiePie was the most subscribed channel on all of YouTube. There wasn't any restrictions put in place on YouTube on cursing and restricting different language, so it allowed for the players to have honest and true reactions to getting scared, and due to the immense emphasis on the butterfly effect, it made us as viewers go around to as many YouTube gamer channels as we wanted to in order to see all of the different endings and choices in the game. But while the timing of its release definitely falls down to a bit of luck and a bit of chance, the story is not at all related to chance. It is instead calculated and executed with precision, and I have to give a huge round of applause to the writers and developers of this game for their success and accomplishment. Now, the first thing that I have to point out about the story is the perfect pacing. I can't state this enough, but this game has every single moment down to a T. It is honestly jaw-dropping how good the timing of everything is. Now, I know a lot of people, they don't really like the jump scares, think it's a bit of a cop-out, but in this game, I think they work great because of the fact that the writers are trying to poke fun at the horror movie cliches in the first half of the game. But whether you like them or not, you can't deny the fact that they are spaced out incredibly well. I remember hearing from somewhere, and I want to say that it was maybe Jacksepticeye's or Gab Smolder's games, that the developers actually added some jump scares in places where the beta testers' heart rates got a bit too steady and calm. It's such a simple sounding test to hook up the players to a heart rate monitor, but man, it was really effective because these jump scares seemed to get everyone. In terms of the writing as a whole, I also have to point out how well done the misdirects are in terms of the surprise enemy at the end. Obviously, the idea of a mystery man and stalker type enemy was at play from the beginning, but then we have the gradual addition of the supernatural, and I love how the supernatural element of ghosts kind of take away and distract us as players from discovering and realizing what the greater enemy at hand is going to be. In Chapter 3, that's when everything sort of kicks off. We have the seance, and subsequently we have the introduction of the ghosts. Right after that, we have Jess getting torn through a window by something with a monster-like hand. Jess getting taken, I think, is the big WTF moment of the game. It's then that most people seem to say, okay, something supernatural is definitely going on. And then we immediately cut back to Chris and Ashley with their ghost adventures. I just really like the pairing of these two events because we get so distracted by the events of the ghosts and then the psychopath that we have no time to truly think and focus on what could have taken Jess. The then huge reveal of the Wendigo is a bone-chilling and heart-pounding moment. Everything at this point has been revealed in the main cabin that Josh used the idea of ghosts to prank his friends. But meanwhile, the real supernatural being is finally seen on screen in full for the first time. And now this might be a bit of a minor detail and probably also a bit of common sense, but I think the writers made a smart decision in having us see the entire creature and let us panic over what the heck it is that's chasing Emily as she escapes the mines before we get all of the background information and lore on the Wendigos. Not knowing what the creature is definitely creates another level of fear for us as players. Now, the general back and forth nature of the main cabin story, and I guess I'll call it the rest of the mountain story, it was absolutely amazing to play out since it always left us on our toes. One thing would get resolved in one section while another problem occurs in the other. Something bad with a person happens here and a supernatural issue would happen there. It created the perfect grounds for constant confusion, which helped create that amazing and unexpected reveal of the Wendigo. We were always on our toes, not knowing what was going to happen next, trying to keep up with the events of two stories while only being in one at a time, and then all of a sudden we just get hit with this huge supernatural creature. This perfect timing, planning, and execution of the twist of the Wendigo is something that no game has come close to replicating since then. And believe me, Dark Pictures is really trying to replicate that, but they are not getting there. I would give anything to be able to experience this game as a first-time unknowing player. When this game first came out, I didn't have a PlayStation yet, and I was an avid watcher of playthroughs on YouTube. And watching that sheer energy shift when the Wendigo was finally revealed was amazing, and I wish that I got to experience that for the first time when playing the game instead of watching it. The beauty of this twist and the unexpected enemy in the game is why I just love this game so much. It takes so much precision to pull this off, and the writers and producers, they all do it phenomenally. Now, something that I always bring up in my Dark Pictures anthology videos is the idea of a double investment. The first investment in all of these games is to keep the core cast of characters alive. And the second investment, it can be anything ranging from a better understanding or the solving of a particular character mystery, or it can be a good general plot mystery. But it can't just be a happy-go-lucky couple's love story as the second investment. We need some depth in here that helps pull us in, that makes us and forces us to want to keep the characters alive. And in Until Dawn, that double investment is definitely strong. We, of course, want to save the group of friends, but we also want to know what was it that was chasing Hannah and Beth that led them to their death? What is that creature with the red and blue vision? That is our main second investment in the game. But the game also does a great job because we also have the mystery of the miners. This adds another layer of investment into the story and makes us want to keep everyone alive so that we can get a better chance at finding clues that better explains the events of the miners. Not to mention, we also have the characters' relationship drama, namely Chris and Ashley's growing love story, which helps push things along and creates more of an interest and intrigue. And I'm sorry, but none of the Dark Pictures come close to this level of detail and emotional investment into the story. Going off of the addition of the miners' events, I really love how it's almost these two dueling groups of Wendigos, Hannah versus the miners. I like that it isn't just one monster, as having one monster would have made it, in my opinion, a little less believable. Mainly in the sense of how can one monster be everywhere with every single character? So having a multitude of Wendigos was definitely a smart decision, and it made for some really terrifying moments, as you would see a multitude of different Wendigos on screen at once. Also, the general attention to detail in terms of dropping clues in relation to the miner's story, and also in relation to Josh's planted evidence that helps kind of build up his prank, is really well done. Just as with the main plot and how we kind of cut back and forth, the clues kind of come up in fairly random order so that we don't really catch on and figure it out until the end or at the precise moment that the writers want us to figure it out. I also think it's really cool that the story of the miners and all of these clues that we've been picking up about them throughout the game come together with the main character's story at the end of the game as the miners are revealed to be Wendigos. I think it's a nice touch to join the clues and the story that we've been kind of forming in our heads as we've been reading everything and having it actually physically manifest in the present timeline of the characters. It's not just something they read about and you can forget. It's going to occur and it's going to impact you later on in the games. I absolutely love this plot, and I also love how the game is basically like a movie. It is definitely right up my alley, with it being less focused on gameplay and more focused on the overall story. But when there are those brief moments of gameplay, it is high energy and high intense, and it made for a really awesome playthrough experience. Before I discuss the characters in a little bit more depth on their own, I want to first bring up the Don't Move feature in this game. I personally love this feature. It is absolutely horrifying having to stay motionless when playing a horror game. I feel that this feature helped pull us in and built the bridge between the game and our physical world. It made for a massively immersive experience, and I hope that one day we get a game with that kind of feeling again. Now, one thing that I do see mentioned a lot in relation to the Don't Move feature is that it's not very accessible. And I can definitely see that in terms of someone who perhaps has Tourette's or even just regular muscle spasms. So I think that it's good that the Dark Pictures anthology games went with the rhythmic heartbeat sections. But I do kind of go back and forth on if they should do this Don't Move feature again and have the heartbeat as an accessibility feature in the menu, simply because the genuine terror and nerves that are felt when trying not to move and feeling the controller shake from the screams of the Wendigo, it was an insane experience that I just didn't feel gets replicated by the heartbeat sections in the Dark Pictures games. Now, that being said, I am all for the developers trying new things to help create a more accessible type of feature that kind of replicates the feeling from the Don't Move section. But I guess we will have to wait and see what they decide to do in the next season of Dark Pictures to see if they come up with something new. Now, I purposely held off on talking about my particular playthrough for this game up until now, simply because I feel that since I have seen and played through the game a lot, I knew most of the decisions and outcomes in terms of the general plot and how to keep people alive. So many of my decisions this time around, they created different character developments. So I'll just quickly point out the interesting things in my gameplay for this video. I was going for a perfect ending, and I knew nothing serious really happens until later, so I kind of just tried to have everyone be nice in the beginning of the game, just to try and get new results that I've maybe never seen before. I did, however, have Matt look through the telescope, which caused the dislike and issues between him and Matt. During the cat fight, I had Matt keep telling Jess to shut up and kind of take the side of Emily. Then, the first real interesting change that I had was actually between Mike and Jess. I didn't have Mike scare Jess into the water, and since I was having them be nice to each other, I got Jessica's character depth moment of insecurity cut out, and instead I got this kind of awkward, sexy dance type scene. I was actually kind of upset with this because I kind of missed her character depth, but I'll talk about that more soon. I was really nervous for Matt's section of the games since I wanted to try and keep him alive and get him to have the flare gun. So I had him comply with Emily's request to break the door down, but then I had him suggest going back to the cabin instead of going to get help at the fire tower. By doing that, he was able to get the flare gun without it shooting off immediately into the sky, and he was therefore able to attempt to save Emily's life both times, which allows for her to like and appreciate him in the post-credits scene. I got so nervous playing through Emily's section in the mines next. Even though I know that the Wendigo is coming, it is still an intense section of gameplay, but luckily I didn't miss the quick times and I got her to safety. I obviously didn't shoot Emily in the head, and I had Ashley reveal the information about the bite being harmless. I then found Hannah's diary, which caused Sam to inform Josh of Hannah having been trapped in the mines, which is what prevents Josh from being squished by the Wendigo version of Hannah. I was so happy to have gotten through the game, keeping every single person alive. So let's just take a closer look at each of these characters and their development on their own. First up is Josh. He is the older brother of Hannah and Beth and seems to be a bit of the life of the party type of guy. I think many players kind of catch on to the weird vibes that Josh gives off, and some people, they rightfully predicted that he would have something to do with everything that's going on in the cabin. He was strangely overexcited, and he kind of was over-sexualizing things towards the party, which seemed to be the sort of first sign for a few people. The voice acting and the overall acting performance by Rami Malek gives off this awkward yet shifty character. In the playthroughs that I watched, Josh was picked the most in who the players disliked the most section that occurs with Dr. Hill after Chapter 3. And I just like how if you do pick Josh, there is that added sort of depression when you realize later on that Josh was actually picking himself. Throughout the game, there are a few subtle clues, depending on what dialogue you choose, that would suggest and confirm Josh is definitely involved in the events at the cabin. But they also suggest that Josh is the person meeting with Dr. Hill between each chapters. The main clue that kind of gives this away is if you find the baseball bat and you ask, "Is this yours?" Josh begins to open up about how he used to play baseball with his dad until his dad got too busy. And then he says the key line, "Well, save it for the couch, am I right?" From the videos that I watched, not many people picked that dialogue and therefore missed this clue. And even those that did pick this dialogue didn't put two and two together until a bit later. But I just find that it's a really nice detail from the writers to suggest that it's Josh all along. I also have to say that while Josh is definitely insane, I can't help but feel bad for him. And I feel like that was the general feeling many other players had towards him by the time we get to play him in that final chapter. You can't help but feel bad for this depressed and tormented person. I also want to add that I actually really like the ending of him ending up as a Wendigo. I find that it's kind of fitting since he's clearly not in the right state of mind. He therefore won't be able to find his way out, and he also might hallucinate the flesh, let's call it, is perhaps something else. So yeah, it's kind of fitting that he became a Wendigo. Also just in the sense that he transformed just as his sister did 1 year ago. Moving on to Sam, she is Hannah's best friend and she's sort of our golden girl who can do no wrong. Now, this might get some people to hate on me, but I just don't really understand why she is such a massively loved character. Sam is definitely the voice of reason during the original prank and throughout many of the events of the game, and yes, she's a good rock climber and is a fairly determined character as a whole, but I just don't know. I don't really feel like she's the best character in the game. We don't really get any info or growth or change from Sam as the game progresses. There's no real background information or complexity in the way that we see with Emily and Jess. So while she is definitely a cool character, to me she's not the most interesting. If we are talking about the best character as in morally the best, Sam is 100% that. But I don't know, I guess I just like the complex characters a little bit more. As for Chris, he's described as a class clown, and he is definitely a how can you not like him kind of character. He's goofy, he's a little bit awkward when it comes to relationship stuff, and he's definitely a caring person. Chris is just great, and honestly, every playthrough that I watched, everyone likes him, myself included. There is, however, a great shift in his character that occurs the moment after he comes back from trying to rescue Josh and fighting off the Wendigos. It is a great character development, and great in the sense of writing, not necessarily great in terms of his personality. But after facing these horrors, Chris just shuts down. He is absolutely defeated. He says his chilling line when the group discusses if they should let Emily stay in the room with them or not. And then he is slightly snippy towards the rest of the group as they chase after Mike. I just really like how Chris collapses into the complete opposite version of his normal personality. The funny, caring, talkative, and bubbly guy is now silent and pretty negative about how everything is going for them. I guess I just like how there is some diversity in the reactions and developments from the main cast of characters, and that in Mike's case, Mike will flourish under the complications, fears, and stresses, while Chris shuts down instead. Now, since I just brought him up, let's talk about our class president, Michael Monroe. I have mixed feelings about Mike. Throughout the gameplay, Mike is actually a really cool character to play as. He obviously has the most cliche hero type gameplay, with him chasing after Jess, but he also has some really random and silly lines that make him entertaining and this likable personality. However, the hard part for me is how quickly his negative traits are kind of pushed to the side. It is clear that it's a part of Mike's personality to move on and look past the negative, based on his introduction in which he scares Matt and Emily with no thought as to how it might be a bit awkward given the circumstances of their breakup and new relationships. The gameplay itself also kind of mirrors Mike's personality by also sweeping the negative sides of him under the rug by giving him those goofy and relatable lines that tend to make him such a popular character. Almost every playthrough that I watched, the gamers liked Mike by the end of the game, despite him being a bit of a sleaze when it comes to getting girls, despite him maybe even cheating on Jess with Emily, and despite him being the face of the prank on Hannah. His heroic events in the game and the relatable lines, they kind of make up for it and make him a popular character, and I won't lie, I also found myself liking this character by the end of the game. So, like I said, it's a bit of mixed feelings when it comes to Mike. I do like him as a character. I know that the idea of him being that main hero sort of trumps much of his faults, but at the same time, a part of me is holding back from saying that he's a great character because of the knowledge of the negative aspects in his personality that just aren't explained or explored in the game. Speaking of heroic and action-driven gameplay, Emily has a huge change in how the audience perceives her when she goes through her action-packed journey in the mines. Emily is obviously a mean person. There is no denying the fact that she is just an upfront bitch most of the time. However, the second that she is alone in the mines, a lot of players, myself included, were quite impressed with her survival skills. Just as how Mike's heroic acts make him likable, being with an injured Emily who is determined to escape a horrible, horrible fate, it made her likable, or at the very least, a lot more tolerable as a character. I actually think it's genius that she's the one to come face to face with the Wendigo on screen for the first time. It almost forces the subconscious idea to us as players that there are much greater evils out there than just the rude and bitchy Emily. I think majority of the players, they leave this section with the feeling of Emily having almost earned her right to survive in this game. Like, yeah, sure, she's a bit of a bitch, but she's kind of cool, so I guess she can live now. That seems to be a bit of the mood that many people have. Now, if you were able to give Matt the flare gun and were therefore able to have him try and save Emily as she falls off the tower, you get a nice little change of heart in the post-credits scene. As Emily admits she was a bit of a bitch, she appears to soften and let down her tough exterior just a little bit as she gets almost bashful about being Matt's girlfriend. I would like to think that when things played out like this, that Emily might change for the better, at least in terms of her relationship. Now, speaking of Emily and Matt, I think that the bonus scene of the two of them getting her bag should have been left in the main game. It gives us a great look at the true version of Emily. She admits her wrongs and shows us how she is self-aware that she is a high-maintenance girl, and it also gives us a way better understanding of why Matt and Emily are together. I think that those who have this extra scene ended up liking and tolerating Emily a lot more than those that don't have it. Even in my replays of the game, it is definitely hard to like Emily without the knowledge of this scene coming to mind. So I definitely think having this scene before everything goes crazy would have been really helpful. Emily is probably my favorite character in the entire game, simply because of how complex and yet complete she is as a character. Yes, she is definitely a bitch, but her resourcefulness and her quick thinking, it's really impressive to see her when she escapes from the mines. Her bitchy behavior and her personality, it is also explained ever so slightly by Dr. Hill, which gives us a better understanding for her, which I felt made her a much more complete character than someone like Mike, whose negative traits, they aren't really explained. I mean, come on, Emily is just a complete badass, so like, how can you not like her, or at the very least appreciate her by the end of the game? Now, there is also another character whose perception drastically changes later on in the game, similar to the perception change that Emily goes through, and that character is Ashley. Now, I dislike Ashley the most out of all the characters. For the most part, in the first couple of chapters, she's just kind of there. She doesn't offer much to the gameplay, and she is for the most part just responding in a pretty predictable way to the events around her. But there are actually quite a few people that like Ashley in the beginning of the game. And for those that might not outright say that they like her, they definitely seem to feel the same as I did, in the sense that they feel she is timid and isn't great, but she's also not bad. I didn't see her get picked once for the bottom 2 in the least favorite character analysis that Dr. Hill gives after chapter 3. Ashley is definitely a middle-of-the-road type of character when we begin our game. As things then progress, she begins to complain and whine a lot, but then we get this strange shift in personality after the Wendigo is revealed. Ashley suddenly becomes an impulsive, stubborn, and almost cruel person. I mentioned earlier how Chris shuts down after facing the Wendigo, and Ashley, after only spotting the Wendigo through the window for a brief few seconds, she suddenly gives into her panicked and impulsive mindset that we caught glimpses of earlier as she freaks out over the fact that Emily got bit by the Wendigo. She doesn't take a moment to think, and her panic, depending on how you play, can lead to Emily getting shot in the head. She is also pretty harsh and inconsiderate to Chris when they are all walking down in the tunnels, which I find is a big moment in her character, because she is treating the guy that she likes, and the guy that she feels has saved her life the entire evening, in a really inconsiderate and mean way. Depending on how you play the game, Ashley can also kill Chris by not opening the door. Aside from Mike shooting Emily in the head, I'm pretty sure this is the only other murder that we have in the entire game in which one of our main characters kills another character in cold blood. Now, I did see a clip of one of the developers playing the game, and he mentioned how Ashley is just in shock and that she didn't exactly mean to leave Chris out there to die. But if that's the case, that's not exactly how the mocap and the facial features read. It definitely comes across as more of a revenge type of kill, which is just horrible considering that it results in a real death and not a fake prank death like her and Chris have been dealing with up until the point that the Wendigos come out. So it's just another reason that I personally dislike Ashley. As a whole, as the game goes on, Ashley definitely lets the night get the better of her as she transitions into a full-blown panic mode by the time that they are all in the basement. And if the players haven't changed their mind already, this is usually the moment that they start to hate on Ashley. Next up, we have Jessica. Now, Jessica is Mike's new girlfriend, and she is a dumb blonde bombshell, right? Well, I honestly have to admit that I was really upset that my playthrough for this game missed out on the great character development because I feel it is a very important moment. Jessica is first introduced to us as the mastermind behind the prank, but that kind of gets swept under the rug as a year later, she is heavily embodying the bubbly, dumb blonde type of character. Her argument with Emily informs us as viewers of how Jess perhaps didn't do so well in school and how she kind of embraces and values her own looks. So when we get to the moment of her admitting to Mike that she really isn't as confident as she seems, it makes her a lot more realistic and likable. Considering that that is the only sort of character development that we can get from Jessica since she is not really in the game for the end half of it, when I didn't get that character development in my playthrough, it was immensely disappointing to see her only as the bombshell blonde character. Even if you do get her character depth though, part of me does still wish we would get more development from her, simply because she is the one that came up with the prank originally. It was a horrible prank idea, so if we had seen more remorse or growth from Jess, it would have been nice, but having the lack of confidence development is way better than not having anything at all. Then last, but certainly not least, we have Matt, Emily's new boyfriend and our resident jock of the group. Now, Matt is the character that most people accidentally get killed in their first playthrough simply because of how difficult it is to actually save him in the scenes in the mines. It is a true butterfly moment since it goes all the way back to a simple conversation that he has with Emily prior to them getting to the tower. Many people still tried to give Matt the flare gun, but he ends up shooting it off since they picked the wrong dialogue, and since people for the most part want to save everyone, they still try to save Emily both times as the tower is falling, which eventually leads to the Wendigo attacking and killing Matt. But while it is a small amount of dialogue that determines so much, I personally find it kind of cool that in order to save him and get the flare gun, you have to make him go against Emily's idea. It's obvious that Emily is sort of the boss in their relationship, so while Matt doesn't really grow too much as a character, the tiny bit of growth that he does have is about him standing his ground a little bit more. He becomes a little bit more of a leader as the two of them hike up the trail to the tower, and as he guides them out of the herd of deer. Again, I really wish we had the bonus scene of him and Emily because Matt just doesn't get a lot of screen time in the main game, and it just would have been nice to have some more depth and growth to him with the addition of his and Emily's relationship before all of the crazy things start happening. As a whole, I just love how each of our characters have very different reactions to the fears and pressures of the night. Ashley falls into panic, Chris shuts down, Emily becomes resilient, Sam fights to be reasonable and smart, and Mike thrives under the pressure as he barrels recklessly right into danger. If it wasn't for all of the complexities and the detail in these characters, the game wouldn't have been a success. Do I wish that there was a little bit more depth and development from some of the characters? Yeah, but unlike in some of the Dark Pictures games, there wasn't an empty space or empty feeling in the game that was left behind from a lack of character development. So while some characters may fall a little bit short when analyzing them individually, when viewing the story as a whole, there is so much going on already, there just wasn't enough time to squeeze in a little bit more background on, for example, let's say Sam. Now, while I kinda hate the fact that I am about to discuss this because I just love this game so much, I do have to look at a few of the negatives. There are a few problems or slight flaws that are in this game. They are pretty minor and they don't really get in the way of the overall storyline, but it is the only noticeable flaws that really stood out to me. And I do just want to point out that I didn't notice them the first time watching or playing through them, and I really only noticed them when I was deeply analyzing the game for this video. The first issue that I had throughout the game is that Chris's dialogue with Ashley often refers to the prank on Hannah with words like, "we did that," or "us." But Chris was passed out with Josh when the prank actually occurred. Sure, he might have known about it, but I just found it slightly confusing since he wasn't actually present when the prank happened in the beginning scene. The intro scene in general is a little bit confusing the first playthrough, and it does make a lot more sense on the second time around, simply because you know who is who and can identify who did what a lot quicker and better than the first time you play. So having Chris's dialogue include him in the prank definitely got a little bit confusing when you realize that he wasn't actually there. The next minor issue that I had was when you go for a perfect ending in which everyone survives, the moment that Sam and Mike open the door in the Wendigo's lair, the reactions are a bit over the top. There is, in that moment, only one body there, but they are still freaking out as if they are seeing 2 or 3 of their friends hanging there. It isn't huge since most people do kill at least 2 characters during their first playthrough, but I think it would have been nice for some different dialogue or a different reaction from Sam and Mike when you do have everyone alive at that point in the game. The next little flaw that I found when playing this game is the totems. They definitely make a lot of sense when you watch back and replay the game, but when you're first playing it, it's very hard to decipher if something is being shown to you because you should do it or you shouldn't do it. And the general vagueness of the clips in the totems isn't enough information to actually help you onto the right path. So while they definitely are a really cool thing to look back on, in the first time playthrough, it's definitely not something that helps you, and it can definitely be a little bit confusing to try and understand as you play. The final issue that I found is just the general confusion surrounding Josh's plan. Now, I know it's a bit silly to try and understand the psychotic character, but I just can't help but wonder why he didn't prank Mike and Jess. Why was the focus on Ashley and Chris? When you look at the intro of the game, where the characters set up the prank, it is Jessica that writes and places the note, not Emily, not Ashley. Sure, Emily goes along with it, but Jessica is the one claiming to have come up with it, as she says she is looking out for her girl M. Then Mike is obviously the face of the prank, since he is the one that Hannah has a crush on. So I have been wondering, why isn't Mike and Jess in the main cabin if Josh is so hellbent for revenge? There is really only one logical reason that I could come up with, and it's that they were originally supposed to be the ones getting pranked, but with the fighting between Jess and Emily, Josh had to resort to his backup, which is the blooming love story between Chris and Ashley. Now, even though there are so many other things I could go on to talk about, I don't wish to bore you to death, and so as I get to the end of this video, I just want to have some fun and try and quickly point out some extra little details that I appreciated, as well as some of my favorite gameplay sections of the game and my favorite lines of dialogue. First small detail is the addition of the wolf's point of view. It's very brief when Mike is running in the sanatorium, and the wolves have a almost purple tinge to the screen, which I thought was just a nice and subtle way that the developers showed the red and blue vision was not that of a wolf. Again, very subtle, but was a nice touch. I also really like the secret video that we get if we collect enough clues that tells us the backstory of the Wendigo curse on the mountain, as well as the story of the miners in full, and just in general being able to watch the clues that you found instead of having to read through everything was a really nice addition.
What?
Do you hear that?
No.
Hello? Someone there? Jess. Which way? Come on, Jess. Huh? Fucking rat. Holy shit, no. Damn it. God damn! Suck it! Ow! Oh, shit! Jesus, hot sauce Christmas cake. This is fucking unbelievable. I was scared, Jet. You can't just jump out at somebody. I'm in the middle of the woods. It's scary.
I'm sorry to scare you.
If we...
They don't like fire.
I don't like fire. The, pro Wendigo tips? Like if I rub garlic all over me, they won't be able to smell me or something?
They'll still smell you.
Anything like that.
I'm okay.
crap, you scared the heck out of me.
How do you think I felt?
You didn't hit your head or anything.
As far as I can tell, I still have all 7 of my limbs.
Don't you see that this torture porn has gone too far? Huh? Away, and now you're all alone.
All good?
You guys gonna make out now?
Oh my god, totally. We're so gonna make out.
Fine, Mike almost shot me, is that
He
fine?
didn't shoot you.
And this bitch almost let him.
Hey, that's not fair. She was scared.
I'm the one who's scared.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Emily. I didn't know what was going to happen.
There's
None of us know.
There's no excuse. There's no excuse for
Emily,
this.
please, just try to understand.
Understand the palm of my hand, bitch. So to sum up my feelings on the game as a whole, I think it's insanely impressive how the writers and developers were able to make such an immersive game with a massive twist at the end. The pacing of the game is perfect, the double investment is strong, the characters are detailed and full of complexities, and the don't move feature is definitely a once-in-a-lifetime fear and feeling to experience when playing this game. I can't wait to play through and discuss Until Dawn's official sequel, The Quarry, with you guys in my next video game discussion. I love Until Dawn so much, and I hope that you all do too. If anyone made it this far into the video, thanks for hearing me out, as this is my longest video to date. If you made it to this point in the video, let me know by leaving a little paw print emoji in the comments section in honor of Wolfie's services. And if you guys like my discussion, please hit that like button down below and leave your thoughts in the comments section. While you're down there, click subscribe to see more videos from me, and turn on notifications if you want to be notified whenever I post a new video. Thanks for watching, everyone, and I will see you future souls next time. Bye, guys!